Welcome to a new episode of Weekly Chew. On this week's show, we'll be showing you how to make homemade pea soup with Bannock. Here are the ingredients you will need for this week's recipe. You will need bacon, yellow split peas, chicken stock, salt and pepper, bay leaves, garlic, onions, celery, carrots, and finally, pork hocks. Let's get started. We're going to start off by making our broth for the soup, starting with preparing our veggies. We're going to trim 3 stalks of celery and set them aside. We're not dicing these veggies because they'll be used to flavor the broth and discarded later. Up next are 2 carrots, which we'll trim, slice in half, and cut once more. You won't need to peel these carrots. A thorough rinse in water is all you need. After the carrots, you'll trim up 1 onion. Since this onion is used for the broth, you'll only need to cut it into quarters. The last of our veggie preparation is the garlic. We're going to grab us 4 cloves and peel off the skin. Once we got them skinned, we're going to lightly smash and crack them open, allowing us more access to the flavor. With our veggies ready for the broth, we're going to cut 7 strips of bacon into small pieces. Since we're using regular pork hocks, we add the bacon to give the broth a more smoky flavor. If you have smoked hocks, you won't need the bacon. So, let's start cooking. We're going to turn our burner to a maximum heat and add 1 tablespoon of canola oil to the pot. This will help prevent the hocks from sticking to the pot. Make sure the whole bottom of the pot is coated with oil. Once the pot is hot, place your hocks as they are into the pot and brown off the first side for a few minutes. Once the first side is brown, we'll flip the hocks over to the other side. Once both sides of the hocks have been browned off, we can add the bacon to the pot. This will give the whole thing a smoky taste. Make sure to mix things around once in a while. Now it's time to add the veggies, starting with the onions. Split the onion quarters up, tossing the pieces all around the pot to allow even flavoring, and mix it around. Then you can break apart and add your celery stalks. After the celery, the carrots can go in. We're going to get some water ready, just enough to cover the ingredients when it's time. But before we put the water in, we'll add our garlic, a good sprinkle of pepper, and mix it all around. Before we add all the water, we'll pour just enough to deglaze the pot, making sure you loosen all the remnants of food from the bottom. Now we can add the rest of the water. After the water, we'll add our bay leaves. We'll add 3 leaves to the mix. You'll want to keep the heat high and cook until it comes to a boil. Once it boils, reduce to a simmering heat, cover, and simmer slowly for an hour and a half. Soon we'll have a rich, flavorful stock. In the meantime, let's get our bannock made, which first calls for 5 cups of flour. Next is 3 tablespoons of baking powder, and we'll be adding about 1 teaspoon of salt, maybe just a bit more. Now, we'll mix our dry ingredients together.
All right.
Then we'll add 2 big tablespoons of lard. Then, with your hands, mix everything together, making sure the lard mixes evenly with the flour. Let's take this time to introduce the cook's little helper for this episode. His name is Jordan.
It's me, Finn.
That's me.
And he'll be helping his dad on this week's show. Back to the bannock. With the flour and lard mixed together, we can add our water, making sure you add just enough to bind everything together without making it too sticky. With your hands, mix it all together. And look, even Cook's little helper is getting in on the action. Knead that dough, Jordan. With our dough ready, we'll grease up our cast iron with a little bit of lard to keep the bannock from sticking. With Jordan's help, Cook will now evenly spread the dough in the pan.
I'm making bannock.
With our oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, we'll place our bannock into the oven and cook until the dough is golden brown. We'll take a quick look at our broth to see how things are going. Everything looks good here, so we'll leave it alone and get started with cutting the veggies that will go into the soup itself. We're going to finely dice 4 stalks of celery. We're finely dicing them because we want to release as much of the celery's flavor as possible and not having the pieces too big. Next, we're going to finely dice 1 small onion, which will join the celery in the soup. Last on the chopping block will be our carrots, and we're going to finely dice 1.5 carrots for our soup. Now that our veggies are cut and ready, we can go back to our broth, which has been simmering for an hour and a half. Now that the broth has all the flavor, we can remove the hocks and veggies from it. Look at those hocks. Doesn't it look like some weird little alien baby we just cooked? Eek. But they do carry lots of flavor. You'll want to get everything out so that you're left with nothing but the broth. So here, we're going to use a ladle. Just as a final step, we'll strain the broth, getting all the little bits that the ladle missed. Now that we have the broth filled with flavor, we're going to add 1.5 containers of chicken stock. Since we need more liquid for the amount of peas we're adding, we're going to add 1.5 containers of chicken stock to the broth. We're using chicken stock instead of water to add even more flavor. Then we'll add some pepper and give the whole thing a stir. We'll take a quick peek at our bannock. It's getting there but not quite done, so we'll leave it alone for a few minutes more. Now we can add our finely diced veggies to the soup. We'll mix it around. And now it's time to take out the bannock. Look at that. Doesn't that look delicious? Now it's time to add our split peas. Remember, for every 750 ml of broth, you'll add 1 cup of peas. So here, we're adding 2.5 cups of split peas. You'll notice it's a little sticky. That's because we previously rinsed and strained the peas. We'll give our soup another stir, mixing everything together. We'll reduce the heat from a high to a low heat, and we'll toss a ½ teaspoon of salt and mix it all around.
The pea soup is breaking down nice. In just about 15 to 20 minutes, it should be eaten.
Then we'll cover and simmer for about an hour, stirring occasionally.
Our soup is done, boys.
After an hour, the soup should be ready. We'll boil some soup. Butter a few slices of bannock. And it's ready to be served. And there you have it. Pea soup with golden bolden bannock right here on Weekly Chew. For complete recipes, log on to moquebec.com/weeklychew, or you can check out the Weekly Chew page on Facebook.